Yo, how you doing everyone? Today is a good day. I'm finally releasing my conversation with Dalia Abo on getting started with software engineering. Dalia is a developer advocate at JetBrains and she's been a software engineer and team lead at IBM and has been writing code for over 10 years now. So she has a lot to share when it comes to getting started with software engineering. We talked about the right way to get started, the right resources to use, platforms you can use to learn, talked about developer communities and all that. All of your questions were answered in this conversation. So stay with us. If you're just getting started with software engineering or your first, second or third year, then this is the best video for you. Before we get started, why not go ahead and hit the like button already, because I'm sure you're going to like it. I'm very sure. Hey Dalia, it's so good to have you here finally. This is the first time we're speaking face to face since I started working with you.
Yes, I'm so glad we get to chat today. I was really looking forward to it when you asked me to come on here and chat with you.
Yeah, and Dalia is a Java developer advocate at JetBrains. She's had a lot of software engineering experience. So we're going to talk about getting started with software engineering. She's the right person or the rightest person to talk to or to discuss this topic with. Dalia has worked at IBM as a software engineer, and I don't know how many companies you've worked with in the past, but I do know that you've been writing code for, I think it's more than 10 years now, right?
Yeah. Even I had an internship when I was in school as well, and I've worked at my university and done different projects. So yeah, it's about more than 10 years now.
Amazing. So we have a lot to learn when it comes to getting started with software engineering from Dalia. And Dalia, I want you to tell us about your background and how you got started with software engineering, since that's the whole point of what we're discussing right now. Was it through school? Was it through boot camps or YouTube? Was YouTube software engineering tutorials a thing back then, or articles and all that? What was the whole experience like for you?
Sure. So my experience was a little bit of a interesting one, because I went to school, went to university, and I didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do. So I went in as just a general engineering major, and I decided to switch to criminal justice and sociology because I was like, oh, I should try that out. I actually did that for a little bit, and then I figured out that I want to try something different. So I took some programming classes based on a friend's recommendation, and I actually took a class in Python, C, and Java, and then I really enjoyed it. So I determined that, okay, maybe coding is what I should be doing, and that's when I ended up switching back to software engineering. So it wasn't really straightforward for me because I really wanted to pick a career that I would be passionate about. So I tried different things, and I actually ended up minoring in philosophy because I really enjoyed philosophy too. So yeah, it's a zigzag. It's like, where do you find your passion? And that's where I ended up.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really interesting part. And surprisingly, I've heard this similar story from a lot of people who are doing software engineering today. Like, it wasn't their plan. They maybe just attended one class. Some people say that there's a software engineer that came to their school to talk to them, and they heard just one thing they said, and they decided to try it out, and they liked it. And that's a really interesting story. I didn't know that there was such a thing as general engineering major. I don't think I've seen that over here in Nigerian universities. I think you have to choose something specific over here.
Yeah, that's one thing that I really enjoyed about going to university in the United States, because they let you go in without really knowing what your major is. But in Egypt, I would have had to choose really ahead of time if I wanted to do a more math degree or whatever it is, or liberal arts degree. But in the US, I could kind of go into something more general and then pick and choose what I want to do and switch between them. So I took full advantage of that and tried different things, going to different classes, and took my time picking where I want to go.
Okay. But by the way, what's software engineering? We've been talking about how you got started with software engineering, but if you had to explain to someone who's not heard of software engineering before, if you were to explain software engineering to them, what would you say?
Yeah. So software engineering is, to me, it's like applying engineering concepts to software development. So you apply engineering concepts to building a house or a bridge. You're applying engineering principles to building software. And for me, when I went to school, it was an intersection between computer science and computer engineering. So we took very similar classes, but it was a lot more math intensive, physics intensive than it would have been if I had taken computer science. And I was already in the engineering school, so I was figured, let me go with software engineering. I could have picked computer science too, but either way, I think for folks that are looking into what degree they want to get, I think both of them work great.
Oh, is there like any specific difference, computer science or software engineering degree?
So for us, when I went to university, it was just the fact that you get more theoretical classes with computer science than you do with software engineering. So I had to take a lot more physics and calculus and like digital logic and stuff like that. But computer science had to do more like theory classes. At the end of the day, when you're getting a job, I don't feel like there was a big difference. So like I wouldn't fret too much about it. So it's both of them are very, very similar, and I don't think even companies make a big distinction between the two degrees, not as far as I know. I think they see them as very similar, and the fact that you took the core classes and you know enough to program.
That makes sense. Yeah. And what was learning like for you then? Was it just going to the university, going to classes every day, and going to your university library, or what was using the internet like back then? If you want to give us the year too, that'll be really great. Was YouTube tutorials, technical YouTube tutorials a thing? Was it blogs, articles, and all that, or just hard copy books?
Yeah, so I went to school around 2008 to like 2013. It took me a little bit longer to graduate because I ended up taking a co-op, which is a longer internship with IBM, and I decided to take a semester off to do that. And for me, it started with like going to class and learning things like data structures, algorithms. I learned Java, I learned Python, I learned C, I learned a lot of different languages, and I really liked the traditional setting for how I learned. But I know a lot of people have done boot camps, and I would love to hear your experience with that. For me, it really worked to just kind of buckle down, learn everything I can in school. And then when I split my time in the middle of my university degree to go and do the co-op, that was really, really helpful because I came back thinking, oh, I am really using a lot of the things that I'm learning in school, so I should pay extra attention. So I highly recommend, if you ever get a chance to do internships in the middle of getting your degree from a university, that is really extremely helpful.
Yeah, that's true. And for me, I didn't use I didn't get a university degree. I didn't go through university, and I didn't use boot camps also. Mine was back in 2013. That was the first time I wrote code, and back then I was using my mobile phone. The internet was already pretty huge then, so I was using my mobile phone and using that to just build website through content management systems, and then I would use like a little bit of JavaScript to add tiny functionalities. Then I went on to start doing XML and all that with Blogger, and before I started building, I went to WordPress, so I started building using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And learning for me was mostly with articles, PDFs helped me a lot because I couldn't. There were videos on YouTube, but I couldn't I didn't have that much bandwidth to use data to start downloading videos or streaming videos and all that. But PDFs, once I downloaded them, I could use them offline, so those helped a lot. And that was from PDF articles and then some YouTube videos. So that was how I got to. And then I always built. I was learning by building. So I'm going to build a project, and I think about the things I need to build that project, and I learn as I build. So that was my own direction without boot camps or university. And it's pretty interesting how we can have several different backgrounds and like we can all still get to the same point of learning software engineering. It's amazing.
That's impressive because like a lot of times when I'm trying to learn something new, like I'm so impressed by people that are able to do it on their own, because a lot of times I don't know which route to choose or what resources are good or any of that. So like that's extremely impressive that you were able to get off the ground like that.
Oh yeah, and it wasn't easy though. I made a lot of mistakes, and that's one of another reason we're having this conversation right now. So that anyone who wants to start and who's wondering which route to take, they don't want to. Because I made a lot of mistakes as someone who I was just on my own. I didn't even have a community of devs and all that. So I always had a lot of questions. I repeated a lot of things and tried something, and like, this is not working for me. I try something else and then try something else, and until I finally got it right. So we're having this conversation so that anyone who was in that position or who wants to start get started with software engineering, wants to go to university, they don't know which course to take and all that, they're going to have an idea on all the things they need to do to get started. And so far it's been so good.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I'm so happy to hear that it worked out for you, and then hopefully someone watching this, it works out for them too.
This has been a really interesting conversation so far. Now, we've seen how you got started in 2008 to 2013, mine to 2013, 2014. About in 2022, have things changed? Is there, are things simpler or are things harder? How would I get started? If I wanted to get started right now with software engineering, how would I do that?
I think a lot of the methods are similar, so you can, depending on what you want to do, you can do it different ways. So you can do like a traditional degree, like what I did, and go in for computer science or software engineering. You can do boot camps, and I've talked to a lot of people that have done that and done a great job as well. You could do the route that you've taken with, just trying to get your everything you need to know on the internet, and I think you need to be very disciplined in order to do that. Depends on your personality, depends on what you're looking for. I think one of my favorite ways of looking at learning something new have been the MIT courses that are available on YouTube for free. It has been such a great resource. That also works for folks that can't really go back to school or can't get a degree. They can still look at the coursework that's available on MIT and go through those, because some of those classes were exactly what I experienced in school, in university, and it's all right there for free from MIT with really great instructors as well. So it definitely depends on your personality and what your learning style is. So I would recommend just picking something that will work for you and sticking with it. That's what's going to be important.
Oh yeah, that's really nice, and it's really good you brought that up, the MIT and the MIT part with the courses they have available for free online, because this is really important. I know that software engineering, computer science in countries like US, many schools there, you go there to learn computer science, software engineering, they really teach you very well. But most of the schools in Nigeria, especially the public schools, the government schools, it's difficult to get up-to-date information on computer science or software engineering from school. So like, if you're a student, you're a computer science student in Nigerian university or other universities that you feel like they're not really teaching you what you need to know, these courses are out there for free, like the MIT courses, and you find them on YouTube. There are also courses on edX and Coursera, which are free. Here, you only pay if you need a certificate from these platforms, edX or Coursera, so they're there. And yeah, it's really good you brought that up. So anyone who wants to use courses, you want to go through you want to see what a structured university part is, you can check out their course outline. I don't know if that's what it's called, curriculum. Yeah, you can check out their curriculum and then look for those videos online, watch them and practice. And yeah, and you also mentioned
I love that point, and I want to make a comment on it because I had friends that were going to Egyptian universities as well. Some of the classes were good because some of the concepts don't change, but some of the classes were not up to date. And I know that they were supplementing their education with classes that they were watching on YouTube. So I would recommend, if you're getting your degree from a university right now, you could also be watching the videos from YouTube on that specific subject as well, to make sure that you're getting all the up-to-date changes or anything like that. But some of those concepts are, timeless. Algorithms, those don't change a lot. Big O, that's gonna be the same, from year to year. So some of those really critical concepts don't change, but it's also like the quality of the professor. You don't want to limit yourself to the quality of the professor you have at your university. So the fact that you can, watch the best professor from MIT give a course on that specific subject is so helpful. Highly, highly recommended. It's such a good resource.
Yeah, that's true. It's good to have that in mind, to not limit yourself, because there was a video I made before, what to do when you don't understand. Sometimes when you're trying to learn something and it's not just getting into your head, it could be that the solution is to try a different resource or try listening to someone else explain it, and maybe that will help you, because everyone has different learning styles. Something that tens of thousands of people might understand from a person, maybe it's going to be different for you. And yeah, so the internet is right there, and you try to listen to other people, hear other perspectives, and yeah, it could be the solution for when you don't understand. And yeah, thanks a lot for bringing that.
And that goes to your original question of what's the difference between like back then and now, is that there's so much more resources that you're not limited to what you have in front of you. Like there's like videos uploaded day after day for folks that are trying to help other students as well. So there's more resources available today than it was when we, were learning software engineering. So definitely don't get, disheartened by not having the resources or not having the money. There's a lot of free education out there that wasn't available when we were learning.
That's true. And talking about that, are there any specific or any particular resources or resource sites, resource platforms that you can recommend?
I'm a big fan of YouTube. To me, like there's like specific channels that I really enjoy learning from. Telesco is one. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He does a lot of Java tutorials, so I end up watching a lot of him. It's really gonna be like who explains the concepts the way that really makes sense to you. And I think there's a lot of creators out there on YouTube that do a really nice job, but their styles are different. So find a topic that you want to learn about. Watch a couple or 3 YouTube videos, and if you find yourself really understanding something from a specific creator, make sure that you subscribe to them and follow them, because they tend to have this, they're speaking the same way that you're learning, and that's why it's making sense. So I personally love YouTube, but there's like so many different options out there for folks that are trying to learn, and a simple Google search and finding different blogs. Some people learn better from written blogs or written tutorials than they do from video. So there are certain websites that do a really nice job with that. We have the JetBrains Academy even at JetBrains. Find something that works for you and stick with it. If it's not working and you're not learning, then switch to something else.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's good you mentioned JetBrains Academy. That's one of the free tools that are out there, especially for the front end. It has paid, but I think for if you want to do like front end, I think we're going to talk about maybe what's different between front end and back end later on. But JetBrains Academy has a free front end track. And speaking of free resources too, there's Free Code Camp. So YouTube, I know a lot of people. Myself, I'm a YouTube person. It's YouTube I use whenever I want to learn anything new. I use YouTube or use articles on the internet. But there are a lot of people that like structured content. When something is structured with them, they have to take this and then take a test and then do something else and have all that. So Free Code Camp is there. Free Code Camp is a good platform for that, and it's free. Free Code Camp. And there's also Coursera and edX. Yeah, Coursera and edX are mostly free, and you pay if you need the certificate. But then Udemy is also there, and I want to also mention this, that it's important we learn how to pay for courses too. A lot of people want to start, and then all they're thinking about is how do I learn this for free? And for free and for free, but there are a lot of quality paid courses out there. And if many of the people who are learning today are people who have gone to the university, who have spent a lot of money paying for school fees. So if we can pay all that money for school fees in the university, we can also invest money in purchasing courses for our personal career growth and all that. And
I love that. I love that perspective, because it's like you're going to have to pay for something. So if you're in university already paying for that, then, go supplement that with free YouTube videos or whatever. But if you're not doing university, you're not paying for a boot camp, you're going to have to invest some money, and it's going to pay off hopefully later when you get a really good job, because you learn those concepts really well.
Yeah. But what are we even really learning? Because I know you've mentioned Java so far, and this is like this is an example of a programming language. Is what you write mostly. Are there any other languages? Why are you even writing Java, and what other languages are there to learn?
Yeah, the languages war, right? I honestly don't think it makes a big difference what language you start with. I think it's more about the concepts, because it's all just different syntax, like, Python versus Java versus C or whatever. I honestly had a better time learning C than I did Java at the beginning, because I just couldn't understand what object-oriented programming was. And it just was not hitting me in the right, like, my brain was just not really understanding it. Later on, thankfully I understood it. But at the beginning, C was actually easier for me to learn, because it was a lot more sequential. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't get too caught up on what language to learn, because if you learn one language, you'll be able to learn another and another. And you don't want to limit your job search for what languages either. You want to say, I can learn whatever language you want. It's like, you add a semicolon or whatever, and it's a different syntax. It's not a big deal. Just pick a language, preferably a language that has a lot of jobs out there, like, Python, Java, JavaScript, C, any of those languages. And just pick it and go with it. Like, don't obsess over which language to learn. It's more important to understand how to write the algorithms, data structures, big O, all those concepts. Those are what's important when you're learning programming for the first time.
That's very true, because these languages are just tools for a craft. The main thing you want to pursue rather, is the knowledge of programming, and that's different from memorizing language syntax and all that. So when you understand the basic programming concepts, what programming is, the skill of programming, then you can transfer that knowledge to any other language, and you discover that once you learn your first language, it's going to be easier to learn the next and the next and the next. And I know there's another battle out there apart from languages. Okay, now I know what language to learn. I know what software engineering is. I want to start learning. I want to start learning software engineering. I want to start writing code, writing these languages. Where do I write it? People are going to start hearing of editors, code editors, IDEs, and all that. What's this all about? What's an editor or an IDE? When I hear of these things as a new software engineer, what do I do? How do I understand them?
Yeah, so are we gonna argue on IDs now? To me, I personally have always used an IDE. I barely use editors, mainly because it's like I don't want to focus so much on getting the method exactly right or whatever it is, and an IDE really helps me out with recommending methods from libraries or whatever it is. It's an integrated development environment. I think of it as using a calculator, because you can still do the math by hand, but having an IDE is really helpful.
Yeah, that's
true. So I've always used IDEs. I've used Eclipse in school, NetBeans. I use IntelliJ IDEA now. And whenever you start doing work, no one's going to be asking you to use, a really basic text editor. So to me, I don't see a problem doing IDEs, but if you really want to do an editor and customize it the way that you want to do it, more power to you. But if you want to start with just Eclipse or IntelliJ IDEA or PyCharm or whatever your favorite IDE is, the idea behind using the IDE is that you focus less on getting every word or syntax right, and you more focus on am I making this application do? I want this application to do something specific, and everything else is a tool to get you to that point. When you're getting a job, they're not asking you, hey, could you get this line of code correct? They're asking you to deliver a business value. I want the customer to be able to go to this app and get specific information. Now, everything else is secondary, and they're going to want you to use whatever IDE makes your job easier and makes it more efficient for you to get to that business value. So I don't see a problem using IDEs, but someone might have a different opinion on that.
Yeah, that's well answered actually. IDEs, and there are some pretty advanced text editors out there today though, and I think it still boils down to the fact that at the end of the day, IDEs make the job easier, but there are people that have different preferences, and I always try to tell people, prioritize yourself at the end of the day. It's what you like, what you really want that matters. Like you said, when you want to go and do a job, no one's going to start telling you you have to write this line of code in this IDE or in this text editor. It has to be done in at the end of the day, is the result of whatever you're writing that matters the most. Another challenge I've seen with IDE is most of the really powerful IDEs out there are paid, but and then that's why it's easier to get started with using editors, because they're free. You're just starting out and then you just get an editor. But I know that for students, JetBrains, for example, which builds a lot of IDEs, has this students plans. So if you're a student, university student, university student, you can get the students plan and then use these IDEs for free. But if not, if you can afford IDEs and you're just starting out, you have to use what you can afford. You have to go with editors, and like I said, there are some powerful editors out there today, so you can start with them, and then when you start earning, you start using IDEs to make your job a lot easier. I think that makes sense.
I mean, if you're learning Java, for example, like the IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition, which is free, like has all the different features that you need. It just has advanced features for like enterprise application development and all that stuff. So you can definitely start with the community edition, and if you really love the IDE, you can pay for ultimate. But don't let that stop you from using an IDE. There's a lot of options out there.
That's very true. Yeah. And what was so right now we're done with all the part of this is learning. I'm trying to learn. I know what to learn. I know what software engineering is. I've learned software engineering. I know where to write my code, IDE or text editors and all that. But now after I have the knowledge, I want to get a job. And what's that process going to be like? How about you? So first of all, you tell us what your own experience was like getting your first job, and then right now in 2022, what is going to be like if I want to get a software engineering role?
Yes, my experience was very different than it is right now, because when I was getting a job, back in like 2013, 2012 actually, because that's when I applied for the co-op. It was with IBM, and they had me talk about my projects, had me, talk about kind of more like what did I work on, things like that. There wasn't like this lead code stuff that's going on right now. So I really liked the interview. The manager made sure that I was a good fit, and then I got a job as a intern or a co-op, and I think that's a really good way for a company to see if you would fit into over there in the company, and for a way for you to figure out if you would like the job. So I highly recommend going the intern or co-op route. And then after I finished my co-op, I got offered a full-time job after I graduated from school, which was really nice, because that, I already liked my team and I liked the product. So I ended up getting hired on full-time. Now, if someone is trying to apply for, a job at IBM or, any of the other companies, it's very different right now. So they have to do tech assessments and leak code problems and all those things, which I can go on and on about how much I do not like it. But I've done interviews where you have to do leak code problems, and it's just kind of what the reality is right now. And my husband just got a job at Google, and he had to do a lot of leak code problems and a lot of preparation in order to get a job at one of the, FANG or like one of the bigger companies. So if I'm going to be completely honest with folks that are looking for jobs right now, unfortunately, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on leak code or other platforms like that where you practice problems, and make sure that you know how to come up with algorithms, know how to do the data structures and all that stuff. It's not my favorite way of interviewing because I think it's really artificial, that it's timed and all that stuff. But the reality is that might be what you need to do to get a job.
That's true. That's true. That at the end of the day, that's the reality. But then there's the process right now doesn't, like the interview process right now, they don't represent reality. What your day-to-day role in that company is going to be like, and I think that's something that we need to fix. But then I know that there are some companies out there who are trying to do the fixing right now. They have more friendly interview processes, but those are just very little compared to all the companies out there today. So want to get a job. It's good to invest your time in learning some of those algorithms, practicing with leak code or HackerRank. And then if you meet a company that's trying to fix this, have more friendly interview process, that would be really great for you. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, one of my favorite interviews was a company that ended up having me clone their repository beforehand and pair with the interviewer on one of the stories. And I really liked that because it was really close to what I do day to day in my job, which is work on actual user stories from a repository that I already have. So not all companies do the tech leak code style problems, and maybe you don't want to work for one of those companies, and you can go to a company that their interview process is better. You can ask beforehand with the recruiter, like, what kind of questions are you going to ask me, or like what the structure is of the interview, and go with that. But there are certain companies out there that really do a nice job with it. And when I was interviewing with JetBrains as well, they had me do a take home, and that was really helpful too, because I can take my time, do the work that I need to do, and then come back with what I have as far as what their requirements are. So not all companies are doing what my whole rant is about, but definitely ask your recruiter, like, what is the interview process and what kind of questions are going to be on the interview.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you've talked about how you don't like the lead, myself included, the lead code and HackerRank stuff. Have you had a personal worst interview experience?
I think anything that involves leak code style, because I've always been the kind of person that like when you have a test, I tended to be the last person to finish. Because I'm making sure everything is right and everything is correct, and I don't like being timed. So anytime I know that I'm up for an interview that is like leak code style, I'm not a big fan of that. So definitely those styles of tech interviews.
Yeah, I don't like that. The timing is just causes a lot of you're trying to solve a problem, you're seeing the time account down. Is that what day to day in that really is going to be like? Anyway, that's I think.
Yes, exactly. Like in my job, I was a dev lead for at IBM, and I was thinking, like, I would never put a timer with one of my coworkers and tell them, hey, you've got to finish this problem at a specific time. It's like, no, we're like sitting down, making sure that we solve the problem correctly, that we have the right algorithm, like we're making sure that it's performant, and like really good algorithms come after you sit down and have some time to yourself without any pressure. So I don't think it's a representation of reality, so that's why I'm not a big fan of them. But I know other people don't have a choice and they have to go through it, so it is doable. It's just gonna be approaching it similar to a class that you're not a big fan of. You just have to do it, and you have to go through
That's
the
true.
problems and practice until you get that job that you really enjoy, and then you don't have to deal with it, hopefully, again.
That's true. You will have to deal with it again as long as you're in that job. That's very true. And there was a question I wanted to ask you. Oh yeah, you're right now you're a developer advocate at JetBrains. I'm gonna ask you what the difference is between being a software engineer. But you worked for a lot of years as a software engineer. So as a software engineer, what was your day-to-day role like?
Yeah, so when I was a software engineer, when I started out of college, I was an open source committer at one of the open source projects that was responsible for JPA, which is a Java Persistence API for Java. And a lot of what we did was, like, for example, implementing specification, or a lot of it was also support. So like customers that are already using the product and are looking for help with any bugs or issues or anything like that. And then I moved on to a development lead role on a migration tool team. And that one was really enjoyable because we worked on building tools that help folks migrating from different versions of a product to another or anything like that. And that was... A lot of it was, prioritizing features and then designing features, implementing features, and testing features. So a lot of the things that I had to do at the very beginning is figuring out what's the best design for this ask. So a customer is trying to do this specific thing, and how can we design the software to do this task in a way that is going to be maintainable in the future, serviceable, and all those things, and then going off and implementing that. So, I've done Java for as long as I have had a career, and I've done a lot of Java with that, but a lot of it is more about, what's going to be more performant and more serviceable. Your code needs to be formatted correctly, all those things, and then you've got to really test your code as well, and make sure that you're not introducing regressions. So that's kind of my software engineering days look like when I was a software engineer.
That involves a lot of thinking, right? I can imagine that you'd be thinking a lot in your role. And is it close to what we see on Hollywood, where someone's doing software engineering and all they're doing is typing on their keyboard and they don't even pause to think? Is that?
No, because you're barely typing. A lot of times you're reading the code and trying to understand what it does, so you can type like two lines in there to fit into an existing code base. I think that's one of the things that you don't really get when you're learning software for the first time, is that a lot of times you're not writing code from scratch. Like, a lot of times you're in an existing code base, you need to be able to read other people's code and figure out how to fit your code, your new code, into that existing code base. So reading code is a really important skill. Debugging code is a really important skill. A lot of times you're sitting there and reading and debugging and not really writing until you're sure you're writing the right thing, and then you write for, maybe not that long, and then you have to also test it and debug it and do all that stuff to make sure that's working right.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. You just described it well. So if you're watching this is what software engineering really looks like. And okay, now you're a developer advocate at JetBrains. What does that even mean?
Good question. So I had no idea what that role was until I started speaking at conferences when I was a development lead. And I met a bunch of folks that were like, oh, I'm a developer advocate. And I was like, what is that? So I ended up finding out that it's a really interesting role that combines teaching and also, customer facing, kind of talking to developers. I think that's one of the things that really attracted me to it. It's like you're talking to developers and you're trying to make sure that they know how to use your software really well so that they can do their job better. And they're also more likely to stick to your software if they know how to use it really well. So for me, I am kind of in the middle of the company and the community, making sure that developers are heard. If they have any problems with the software, I'm taking that feedback and telling the developers of the software, hey, people are really having a hard time with this specific thing. Can we do something about it in the software? And also the other way around. Hey, this feature is really helpful and I see a lot of developers aren't using it. Let me make sure that they know how to use it, create content around it, presentations, all those things, so that they know how to use the product really well and they're more successful in their jobs as well.
It looks like your job sounds really interesting. I also feel like you're doing a lot of things, and I think that's fun for you probably. Yeah, so anyone who's been asking what's developer advocacy about, this is what developer advocacy is about. So if you're that kind of person who loves to be between a product and the community, interact with the community, help educate the community and all that, be an advocate basically, then yeah, you're gonna enjoy it. So that's it. And I think this has been a really good introduction to software engineering. If you want to get started with software engineering, and I wish I had this video to watch when I started. This would have been a lot easier for me. Oh, there's one last question I forgot to ask. Yeah, I think this is going to be really quick. The basics / need to know programming concepts, because you mentioned programming concepts, you mentioned data structure and algorithms and all that. So what are the basics or need to know programming concepts? What are the programming concepts I need to know if you want to get started with software engineering?
Definitely. So data structures, algorithms, big O, which is like performance and all that stuff, databases, like there's I think those are kind of the main ones that I can think of. A lot of times, for example, we mentioned the MIT course, they have like an introduction to computer science course, and they cover a lot of those concepts as well. So a lot of the things that they cover in an intro to computer science or intro to programming courses are there for a reason. And it's basically because you really need to understand those things in order to learn programming. So if I had to choose, I would choose data structures and algorithms. Those two are very important.
Yeah, that's true. And then you also come across like programming paradigms. You've mentioned OOP, object-oriented programming. How it wasn't so easy for you when you started, and and then there's also like functional programming and all that. So those things are very important. And like Dalia has said, go check out the free courses out there, the MIT curriculum, YouTube, and you're gonna see all this basic need to knows that you need to know. That's really good. That was really good for me. Basic need to know that you need to know to get started with software engineering. So yeah, I think that's it. Now we can go over to the EMA. So we sent out a form before recording this video, and so that new software engineers can ask questions about software engineering, their challenges, what they really want to know, and what Dalia can answer concerning what Dalia can answer. I think I don't know what I'm saying anymore. So those are like AMA questions that we can answer in this interview. And let's go over to those questions. And I'm going to ask you questions from these people, and I'm sure we're going to get really good answers. So this is the first question we have for you, Dalia. This one's from Momoni. How do I balance my hectic academic life with my software engineering learning process?
I would think that they're both kind of interchanged if you're learning programming during academic life, but if you're not, I typically, whenever I'm mentoring interns, I tell them school comes first. So always remember that the priority is school, but it's also important to have a consistent way to learn what you need to learn on the side. So if you're learning software engineering on the side or software development on the side, what really helps me is to come up with a good plan for how I'm gonna make sure to do that. So for example, I sit down, figure out all the things that are on my plate and what schedule I need to have in order to get everything done, like with school, and then I carve out time that's dedicated to learning software programming. I stick to that. So think about when are you more productive, morning or afternoon? Pick whichever time that you're more productive in. Carve out the time, maybe like a couple of hours whenever you can manage it, and make sure that you do it, and you make sure you do it consistently. That's what's important, is consistently making sure you're learning those concepts and in a way that is gonna actually happen instead of planning on making it happen. But school comes first.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Next question. Would you advise reading documentation over watching tutorial videos?
I would advise doing both. So for me, I really like watching videos when I'm learning new concepts. Like when I was learning Docker or AWS, I searched on YouTube and found a video, mainly because I really like this more lecture style where someone is explaining something to me. But then when I'm done understanding the core concepts of a technology or whatever concept I'm learning, I switch between written and video tutorials. It's whatever I'm trying to do. So if I'm trying to create a new hello world with Docker, for example, I can go either way. I can do video and I can do written tutorials. Now the question is asking about documentation. Documentation is typically more about how a software operates than a step-by-step tutorial. So if you're looking for like, how do I actually use this library or use this tool, the documentation is a great source because it's from the developers, and they tend to make sure, or in a very good software company, they make sure that it's up to date. So a lot of times the tutorials on, whether video or written, they can get out of date. But one of the core things that we had to do every time we deliver new software is to make sure the documentation is up to date. So I use all of the resources I have, and it definitely, for me, because I'm more of a video learner, I like to watch videos, but I also use written tutorials as well. Just depends on what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's well answered there. When you said don't fixate on just one method, like you have to use all the resources that are available to you. Don't say I have to use only videos, or I have to use only documentations. Use whichever works for you. You can try videos, and if videos are not working, use the documentation. And documentation is always, or usually up to date, like you pointed out. So do what works for you. Don't just fixate on one and say it has to be this one or it has to be this one. Yeah, yes. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, this question: what do you advise a developer to do when he or she feels overwhelmed and confused at the early stage of development?
Yeah. The main thing is to remember that we've all been there. Like everyone starting out, they were confused, they, felt overwhelmed. And a lot of times I like to think back to where I was a few months ago and see how much progress I've made. So don't sit there, compare yourself to other people. No, compare only yourself. Look back at, a couple months ago, I couldn't even do this, and now I can. And always just remember that you're making progress and you're growing, and that's what's important. The other thing is I like to surround myself with a network of people that are in the same boat that I am. So find other people that are also learning programming, be part of that community, because they're going to be expressing same frustrations that you're going to be having. And it's going to be nice to know that other people are also struggling and it's not just you. Having a good network that is supportive is a really, really helpful thing to do, especially when you're starting out.
And that's one thing I wish I had as a self-learner back then, because I wasn't part of any community. It was not so easy to find this community. So when I felt overwhelmed, when I felt discouraged, I just had to find a way to push myself back up. But you don't have to go through that. There are a lot of communities out there. It's very accessible right now. There are Slack workspaces for developers. There are a lot of Discord servers. There are Facebook communities to Facebook groups and all that. So these are all there. You can just easily join. It doesn't have to be physical. If you can get a physical community, that would be very good. But if not, the internet is right there for you.
Yes, I fully agree. It doesn't have to be physical, face to face. Even having Twitter with the right followers or the people that you follow that are also learning how to program. There's like the hashtag 100 days of code, or like there's different hashtags where people are learning how to code, and I follow some of those folks, and I love seeing folks that are still just starting out and they're asking questions and experts are chiming in. Like, it's so cool to be able to have direct access to so many experts when you're just starting out. So take full advantage of those platforms because other people really want to help out too.
That's true. That was well answered. Thank you. Let's see which other question right here. Okay, I should direct this one to you right now. What's the hardest part about software engineering for you personally?
Hardest parts. I think maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's certain things that are hard during different times. Like if you are struggling with a really hard bug and you just can't get through it, that's going to be really hard at the time, but then you get through it and you just feel great. I think there's certain things that I can point to. Like, for example, tech is changing all the time and you need to always be keeping up or like learning something new. I think that can get overwhelming. It's important to filter out the noise and know which things you need to really learn and which things you can fully ignore. So honing on that skill and making sure that you're focused and know what to learn is an important thing, because the tech field is just really evolving and changing at a rapid pace, which sometimes can get overwhelming. Other things, like estimating how long something is going to take is a notoriously hard thing to do in software development. You can think that it's going to take a week, but then you run into this bug that ends up derailing everything for you. So that's also hard. I mean, there's a lot of things that are kind of challenging, but no matter what, there's resources out there to help with whatever you come across. So having that supportive network that, whatever you run into, there's someone else has gone through it too. And finding out who that person is that can help you is going to be really important and helpful. So yeah, I can't pinpoint one thing, but either way, you can go through it and like you'll come out better for it too.
You answered that question really well. I don't know how and that's why I'm happy you're the one who has to answer the questions, because I don't know how I would have answered the question directly myself. So yeah, you answered the question.
It's a hard question.
Yeah, the question of it's that's an interesting play of words there. So I think that's also a good way to ask this next question. Do I need to have developer friends in order to succeed as a software developer? Because I know a lot of programmers that move in groups. So is it necessary? Is it a necessary thing for an introverted person like me to do?
That's a rough question to answer, because I sympathize with the person asking it. But I was just reading this book on by Kelly Hoey on building your dream network, and she was talking about how people that are really good at networking that she's talked to have been introverts. And it's mainly about building relationships than just going out and having these shallow relationships with other people. It's more about having these really genuine folks in your network that care about where you are and want to support you. If you don't have access to those folks, you can still make it in software engineering. You can still do what you need to do, but it makes it a little bit more difficult, because when you're down and you don't know why you're doing what you're doing or feeling imposter syndrome, having those folks on your side can be really helpful. And you don't have to have the developer friends right where you are. Like the fact that we have folks, like I have a lot of friends that are just virtual. Like I know them from Twitter. I actually never met Trisha G, which was my lead in person, and I built that relationship on via Twitter, and I have had really fulfilling relationships with folks virtually. So I encourage you to build those relationships. Don't feel like it's a have to. It's more of a, it's nice to have people on your side, but you don't have to do it. You can still learn. You can still watch people that are on your timeline and learn from them without even talking with them. So having the right follow list on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever platform you're using, following folks like Ebenezer here, on their YouTube channel, figuring out folks that really inspire you and motivate you, and just listening to them and absorbing all that info is still one form of having a network. So yeah, I mean, it's a nice to have, but don't feel like you're having to do it because I just have to do it to get a job. It's more of like it's a great thing to have a nice community and a nice network.
Yeah, I think that was well answered. That was a good way to wrap up all the questions. Really, because we talked about joining communities earlier and all the necessary need to knows and all that, but this question right now is like, you can do this, but it's not like totally necessary. Something that's good to do, good to have, but then you can still work without it. Yeah, that's why I really like that answer, and I think that'll be all the questions we can take right now. I have to let you go. Also, we spent a lot of time and a lot of worthwhile. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Worthwhile time or something.
Thank you. No, it's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed the questions, and I'm really happy to see folks like you that are helping people just starting out, because it can be overwhelming and it can be really hard starting out. And I really appreciate this time, and I appreciate you having me on and getting to answer these questions and help in any way.
Yep, this has been really insightful and fun for me too. I'm really happy we're able to do this, and I would love to have you again some other time. We'll talk about something else. That'd be really
great.
Cool. And I think that's it. Let us know if you have more questions, our viewers, please ask them in the comment section below, and let us know what you feel, or if there's anything in particular that stood out to you the most from our conversation. Let us know in the comment section below. Before we go, Dalia, is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything you're doing right now you want us to check out? Maybe your Twitter account or blog or anything?
I have, my Twitter account at Dalia SHEA. You can find some of the tutorials that I've done, because I'm really passionate about teaching people technology, and I have videos on Docker, because that was really hard for me to understand, and I have different videos and different concepts that I'm really passionate about teaching. So you can follow me on Twitter, and if you have questions or any follow-up comments, I'm happy to have them. I'm always I love talking to developers, so reach out to me. I'm happy to talk.
Awesome. So I'm gonna leave links to Dalia's Twitter account, and maybe if you have a YouTube channel where we can see your tutorial videos, and Dalia's LinkedIn. And I think that's it. Thank you so much, Dalia, for coming. This has been really great, and see you all next time. Bye.